how spiritual practice or the spiritual path can strengthen the ego or the separate self, the me. And it seems to be counterintuitive because when we come to the spiritual path, we are usually looking for freedom, for truth, for oneness, wholeness, awakening. And we're looking to dissolve the ego, the separate self, and to just melt and merge into oneness, right? And so perhaps we start to make some kind of effort, some doing starts to happen, some practice with the hope, with the idea and intention to get somewhere, to become somehow more awakened, free, spiritual. And we very diligently, perhaps, practice whatever it is, meditation, self-inquiry, following various teachings or practices. And as we are doing that, we might start to notice some changes that start to happen. And as we do, it is very tempting to start to identify with the one who is seeking, practicing, arriving. And what I'm saying is not anything against spiritual practice, right? Spiritual practice for sure has its value. It's more about who is doing it? Who do you think you are? And where do you think you're trying to get to? Who do you think you're trying to become? Right? Because we tend to, on the spiritual path, be endlessly trying to fix and improve and polishing ourselves so that with the hope that one day we would become perfectly spiritual, whatever that might look like in your idea of spirituality or awakening. And in the meantime, there's an identification that is being strengthened by this practice. So the opposite of what we are trying to do starts to happen. Because being the spiritual seeker is a very seductive identity. It seems very righteous, right? Actually very close to the truth, really, what we really want. And I'm not saying we're doing something wrong or bad. It's actually innocent how this happens. We are simply trying to become what we most deeply long for. And what we most deeply long for is all those beautiful concepts of truth and freedom. It's just that when the mind tries to do that and become that, it is actually creating more of this separation, this separate self that that we are trying to dissolve. It becomes about being the spiritual seeker, and that might include even every aspect of your life, like your hobbies, right? Maybe it's the only kind of books you read, or you watch endless YouTube videos of different spiritual teachings, or there's a kind of addiction to go from one teacher to the next. And the idea is that you keep seeking and really you never want to arrive, because actually the spiritual seeker identity is based on not arriving. It's based on forever seeking. Because if you were to arrive, whatever that would mean, you would have to let go of this spiritual seeker identity. And then who would you be, right? Then you'd be really lost without even that. So true spirituality, or the path of awakening, is really about seeing this constant construction of a separate self. Seeing it. There's nothing to do there's no need to deconstruct it all the time, although sometimes some of that kind of practice can be helpful. But it's not that you need to do anything. It's just about seeing how the nature of the mind, of thought, is that it keeps constructing a separate me. But if we see it, it dissolves naturally. Or in fact, we just see through it. So it can even be here, but we have a little laugh at it, or maybe we feel the pain of it, but we don't take it to really be who I am. And so it doesn't motivate us. We don't function or live in our lives believing that this is me, that I am that separate me. And so then the spiritual path, it may include practice, because practice has its value in terms of quietening the mind, creating some space, deepening in recognition of who we are, or sense of presence more and more, seeing through old patterns. Practice has its place for sure. But when we are using practice to strengthen this sense of separate self, then it's like the opposite effect to what we are trying to do. And so then the spiritual path becomes not about endlessly becoming and fixing ourselves and endlessly improving this human. It's actually about seeing that this human is already perfect in its imperfections. In other words, whatever is here is welcome. And it's about meeting our vulnerability, meeting with absolute intimacy, all the feelings, sensations, even thoughts, meeting it all for what it is, knowing that you are not limited to that human experience, but at the same time that human experience is appearing in you. You are not ever going to become some kind of perfect spiritual person. Yeah, you are never going to become a perfectly special spiritual seeker. In fact, it's about losing any specialness. It's a very humbling and endlessly humbling journey. Continually losing who you thought you were, losing the ground that you thought you were standing on, that was solid and safe, continually losing, even losing the spiritual identity or the spiritual ego, which often is the hardest one to lose or to let go of, because it seems so close to the truth. But we're clinging onto this spiritual identity often because we're afraid. We're afraid to just be no one, to let go and have nothing and no one to be. We're also afraid to feel. Yeah, we're trying not to feel the pain or the fear of being human, of whatever does come up in our human experience. We tend to use the spiritual seeker identity in a way to bypass our human emotions and experiences that might be challenging, hard to face and to meet and to feel. We decide that those experiences are excluded from spirituality. And it's very convenient, right? Because when they're excluded, we don't have to feel them. And when we have this spiritual seeker identity that we are strengthening through practice, we are using our spiritual practice to try to get rid of or fix all those uncomfortable sensations or experiences that we deem not acceptable. Endlessly polishing them away. But what if they can just be here and there's nothing to do? No one to become. Just feeling it. And knowing that it doesn't mean anything about you. Letting life break you open so that you have nowhere to stand, no one to be. This, to me, is true spirituality. Not being a special spiritual seeker. That can be fun for a while, but eventually we have to let go of it and free fall, never landing anywhere in any identity.